Hey everyone, this is Stove here. Welcome back to another video, and this is a very special one this week, and that is only because it is conference championship week. That's right, we made it to week 15 of the college schedule, and obviously I'm just going to be here running down all the matchups and telling you what I think about each one of these different matchups. Looked through a lot of the records, so hopefully I can be right on some of this stuff. Looked through some of the stats, but really it all comes down to who's going to come out with this win by the end of Friday night, by the end of Saturday afternoon to going into the Saturday evening and later Saturday night. So, starting off, we have Troy versus James Madison, which is the Sun Belt Conference at 7 o'clock, and with that also is the Kennesaw State versus Jacksonville State for the Conference US or CUSA or Conference USA championship. So both of these teams, well, going off of just Troy versus James Madison. James Madison is one of the few teams that have, or I should say handful of teams that have 11 wins this season. Their only loss did not come from Troy, but came from a solid team in Louisville, I believe. And that same Louisville team had been ranked around that same time, I believe, or ranked the week after. So it was whenever Louisville was getting a good push here and there and started to look good, but then started getting dragged back down through the mud. And Troy, they're 8-4, also 6-2 in conference play. James Madison hasn't lost a single conference play game. So it's going to be interesting. Troy, obviously the underdog, and I obviously will just say that James Madison has all of the right tools to pretty much wipe Troy off the face of the earth after this game. Granted, Troy has a decent defense for where they're at in the Sun Belt, but James Madison will probably just end up putting like 40 plus points on them anyway, and Troy may only get like between 20 and 28 points. So it'll just end up being James Madison winning in solid fashion. Now, Kennesaw State versus Jacksonville State. Again, that is the Conference USA championship, which goes without saying, it's still going to be a banger in my opinion. I think you look at a lot of these teams with a lot of solid players. Some of these players have either now some of the players that you may be thinking about have probably already opted into going into the transfer portal, which does start right after the college playoffs end, I believe, or at least should. And yeah, a lot of players from a lot of teams, including teams that are going in, that have already been projected or predicted to go into the college playoffs, have already opted into the transfer portal, which I believe once you opt into the transfer portal, you are considered to not be able to play with the team after that, and you pretty much just have to wait until you get out of the transfer portal and whatnot. Now, I'm sure the teams could probably take you back if you wanted to go back there, but yeah, there was already one player from Georgia that was wanting to leave there, which I find kind of ridiculous. I'm sure if some players played fairly well, unless they grew an attachment to the team and the coaching staff and the environment, I'm pretty sure some of these guys that are playing on Friday will probably be either transferring over to some of these teams that may be playing on Saturday, or some teams that are of bigger conference, bigger standings, bigger, higher standards for that individual player, and with being able to show their stuff in these conference championship games, maybe it could actually help them either get drafted, maybe a few more looks at them, maybe just looks for, like, if they're true freshmen or sophomores that just want to get whatever they need to out of the team that they're in with and then just bounce, kind of like some head coaches lately. But anyway, back to the matchups themselves. Kennesaw State is 7-1 in conference play and 9-3 overall. Kennesaw State actually did not start too well. I believe whenever I was looking at their record, they did start with a loss, I believe, to Wake Forest, 10-9, and won a humiliating loss against Illinois when Illinois was ranked and was doing pretty well for themselves, or at least trying to. And kind of similar to Jacksonville State, but Jacksonville State lost a couple here, lost a couple there, but it was majority against teams out of the conference, and I'm pretty sure they don't really have too good of a record. I'm pretty sure they're looks to be only 1-3 against teams that are out of conference, because they are 7-1 in conference. So matching with Kennesaw State, both those teams obviously be facing each other in the conference championship. I think those two, with both of them coming out of nowhere just in the last 2 to 3 years, I'm pretty sure these two teams have just kind of appeared into this division of theirs, and into the conference that they have been in. And obviously for a lot of you, these two teams were pretty much teams that you guys would want to rebuild and put them into going from where they were predicted at, or how low their overall was, to now, basically pushing them into college playoff contention and possibly even winning a natty. But truly, it does look like if you were to play one of these guys as a dynasty, one or both of these guys would show up in the conference championship, which, again, very happy to see these two teams push through, and these two also being the main teams in their conference to show up and show out. The only thing I would probably have to say is this one is probably going to be the closest one that we see, in my opinion. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe Boise State and UNLV could be pretty close. North Texas and Tulane could probably be pretty close. But I believe that this conference is going to be a true fighting matchup for Friday. And keep your eyes on all four of these on Friday. But I think these two are going to go back and forth unless one of them just straight up starts scoring. Their defense starts absolutely whooping the other opposing offense's butt, and then in that case, that team will end up winning. But I think I'm gonna have to go Jacksonville State, just because Jacksonville State is technically at home for this. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing technical about it. They are at home. So, yeah, I think with being the at-home advantage, I would go ahead and say Jacksonville State is end up going to take this one, which would make Jacksonville 9-4, Jacksonville State 9-4, and Kennesaw State 9-4. Then we go into North Texas versus Tulane, which, if I look at the paper here, North Texas and Tulane is the AAC, which I believe is the All-American Conference. Pretty solid to see that we have two top 25 ranked individual teams that are facing each other for this conference title, and I believe it may even strike a good chord, as it's also being broadcasted on ABC. So I think it would be very interesting to have looks at these two teams. Plus, these two teams aren't really the two teams that I was like. Now, North Texas I was, Tulane I kind of was, just because Tulane has been back and forth, has had off years, but have also had some good years too. They're not the only two teams that have done have had pretty solid years. UCF, or University of South Florida, or yeah, I think it's South Florida. Oh goodness gracious. But that's just one of them. If you look at their conference standings, there are tons of the top, I'd probably say at least top 8 in that conference has teams either having 500 or above, whether it has to do with conference play, whether it has to do total record wise. I think in the top 8 or top 6, you have some really solid teams that have played out of this world and have even played incredible matchups if you look back through all the scoreboards and stuff. Realistically, I think Tulane is going to have a struggle with North Texas's offense. I think every single team has had this trouble with North Texas. I think North Texas's only loss is against UCF, which UCF was going on an absolute tear. So winning against North Texas was just kind of part of it. And that's really only loss from North Texas. I believe North Texas and Tulane has also faced each other before, and North Texas has won that matchup already, showing that Tulane, that would be their only loss, I believe, in the conference, but them being 2-10 in total record, North Texas being 11-1 in total record. So with that being said, this is going to be a fantastic matchup, truly. Like I said, this will be watched and recorded for a lot of people to watch. If you have ABC, or you're watching it on YouTube because somebody wants to stream it or something like that, I definitely would advise watching the highlights if you guys can't watch the game, for sure. Though I do believe North Texas's offense is just out of this world. I have high belief that even when they're declared as the away team for this conference championship, I will have to go with North Texas winning against Tulane, and probably even either switching ranks or Tulane getting pushed out of the top 25 and North Texas squeezing their way into the top 20. Boise State versus UNLV, which should be the Mountain West Conference. to kind of end it off on Friday with North Texas and Tulane. This one being on Fox, UNLV being a team that is 6-2 in conference play and 10-2 in total record play. Boise State 6-2 in conference play and 8-4 in total record play. Boise State definitely had a very sloppy year themselves in the beginning, and then even towards like the middle they had a couple of losses as well. UNLV, the only 2 losses that they had were in conference, so it kind of just shows how tough that conference, this Mountain West Conference, basically was, going back and forth and trading wins, trading losses to each other. Pretty tough game. So realistically, I think this can be a really tough game, and I think it could also be a very close game. UNLV has the opportunities and can be able to win against a prestigious school like Boise State, but with Boise State also kind of having, in my opinion, some tougher guys. Even though they've lost some games, I think Boise State still ends up coming out with the win, not only because they're at home, but because with their they've also lost against teams that they shouldn't have lost to. Besides, in my opinion, UCF had also beaten Boise State in the beginning of the year, if you guys remember that. So I think Boise State does come out. I think they do end up beating UNLV by, I would say, a touchdown or more. If UNLV wins, it's more than likely by like an overtime win or by like 3 points or less. So that is pretty much it for Friday's conference matchups. Again, solid matchups. If you guys miss them, just watch the highlights, seriously, because these guys deserve your viewership as much as, in my opinion, the rest of these conference teams that we're going to be looking at today, because again, these are some solid players. Some of these guys are 3, 4, 5 stars as well, that either got shipped down to these programs or had to start in these programs, and they get to still show their talent on national television for hundreds of thousands to possibly even millions of people to see. So definitely give your support to those guys. Saturday we will be starting off with the Big 12 championship, which for some reason ABC is like taking hold of mostly all of the good matchups today on Saturday, with the Big 12 being BYU going and playing at Texas Tech. Number 11 versus number 12, which I believe is like the first time in a long time that we've seen a Big 12 conference championship have both of their conference teams be in the top 12 rankings. So that's going to be pretty freaking cool. And with that also, you have Miami, Ohio versus Western Michigan, which is a part of the MAC Conference Championship, or just the MA Conference Championship. But yeah, BYU ranked 11th. Hold on. Yes, BYU is ranked 11th. The only loss in their record was against none other than Texas Tech, which I believe was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. So it was still kind of fresh in BYU's mind, and Texas Tech kind of kind of beat them soundly. showing that they are the number one team in the conference, and the fact that their head coach earlier this week literally said that, oh, Texas Tech, we're not going to a lot of people are thinking that Texas Tech is going to move over to the SEC and get some real challenges and, get their program boosted up because they're in the SEC conference. Regardless of how that would work, and the fact that it probably would actually help their program grow just for being in that conference because of how prestigious that conference actually is, I do believe that Texas Tech is going to make the right decision by staying in the Pac-12, BYU doing the same exact thing. I believe that they could easily bring the Big 12 back to a higher standard like it used to. Granted, there hasn't really been any Big 12 teams that have won the Natty in years. I believe the only one close to winning a Natty or winning a national championship was BYU, and that was whenever they faced Michigan, and Michigan beat their ass so bad that that's kind of where we started thinking they gotta be cheating. And that was in the semifinals for the conference playoffs at that point in time. So, be that as it may, BYU is going to have still that in their minds. BYU being 8-1 and 11-1, Texas Tech being 8-1 and 11-1. I believe Texas Tech lost to somebody in their conference. I just can't remember who it was, but the good thing about it was, though, both of their losses did come from in the conference that they are playing in right now. So both these teams understand how tough and how grueling the conference had been for them, because both teams have also played in very close games that they could have also lost at least 2 more times in. So with them being here now, showing up for the Big 12 Conference Championship and being able to show out for that for not only their programs but for the conference itself, you guys gotta watch this whenever it comes on around 12. Also try to watch the Miami, Ohio versus Western Michigan game, because it basically still is Ohio versus Michigan, kind of just a Temu version of it. But, I still see some great effort coming from Miami, Ohio's defense, seeing that a solid, I wouldn't exactly call him a friend because we haven't talked in so long, but if I were to have continued having contact with them, he would definitely be a very friendly individual. Adam Trick, in my opinion, leading that defense as the defensive end or defensive tackle that he is now. He was a linebacker, I believe, whenever he first got there, and then he got switched over to that defensive line. Was a linebacker, and I believe was even a team captain for Wayne High School, same school that I went to, right down the street from my house. Beautiful school, and the guy off the field, confident, truly a very friendly dude to be around, but on the field he'd break your shit, truly. The guy would absolutely take off your helmet and beat you with it if he absolutely needed it to win. But yeah, I think Miami, Ohio is going to end up winning against Western Michigan, just because their defense has actually been, in my opinion, pretty solid for the space that they had been in. Now, granted, they've also traded wins and losses. They are 7-5 total record, 6-2 though in their conference play, which is pretty good. Now, Western Michigan is also 7-1 though in conference play, and 8-4 in in just total record play. So they're both still pretty close individual programs, in my opinion. Obviously, but neither of them had true success when facing teams outside of their conference. But inside of their conference, it's still going to be a fantastic battle. I, again, will just have to be a little biased and go more towards Miami, Ohio, and that defense is going to, whether with Adam Trick or not, I don't know if he actually got injured or not. I might have heard something about that, but still with a guy that I know who's been working his ass off, who I'm sure every single player is working their ass off to be able to play in these conference championships. It's going to be an incredible matchup, and again, biased wise, I would have to go Miami, Ohio, and even if I wasn't biased, I would still go Miami, Ohio, being able to take the win away from Western Michigan. BYU and Texas Tech, I would have to say Texas Tech. Going back to that matchup, I would have to say Texas Tech easily will take away the win from BYU and the program of the Mormons. But no, generally I think it can be a closer game if BYU just shows up and their defense, if they just can outplay Texas Tech. Actually, really, they don't really need to play Texas Tech. Arizona State, they passed a lot more. They got a lot more passing yards than Texas Tech when they faced them. But the only thing that they actually were able to do to be able to beat Texas Tech was take more time possession from them. Arizona State had 37 minutes, where Texas Tech only had barely 23 minutes. So if BYU can do that, I think they're already positioning themselves to have a way better game than what they did last time against Texas Tech, and hopefully they don't repeat the same mistakes, because if they do, it will just be a repeat of what happened last time when these two teams both faced off against one another. That, and also Arizona State did have one interception against Texas Tech. So if BYU can get a couple of turnovers and put their offense into good field position, it'll be lockdown win for Texas Tech. Georgia versus Miami. We're starting to get to a lot of the more popularized ones. Georgia versus Miami at 4 o'clock on Saturday. Hopefully I'll be able to watch this game, even though I should be going bowling around 2 o'clock. Hopefully I'll be able to not have to miss this game too much. But Alabama versus Georgia. If you guys have been watching any college stuff, even just the highlights, because you guys maybe have missed it, Alabama beat Georgia the last time they faced each other. Georgia is technically, and I'm pretty sure is, the team that is, I believe, hosting the SEC championship. So they do have a bit of leverage calling that place home for them. And Alabama, even though Alabama says that they're the ones hosting, I don't really get that. But Alabama on the ABC should be able to get the win against Georgia, as long as that defense and that offense both shows up. Alabama has been incredible pretty much this entire season. They've had some miscues, had some mistakes that they made against Florida State and against in my opinion, another solid team, but wasn't necessarily too good enough to make themselves into anything. But I know Alabama still has learned from those losses. Georgia, I think, has also learned from the loss against Alabama, but they've also both of these two teams have learned from their wins, learned from their mistakes, even when they're winning, and have been a part of a handful of teams or slightly dozen teams that have been able to correct their mistakes even when they're winning and proceed to move forward the next week to trickle down all of the mistakes, corrections, and again move forward to win the game that's following them into the next week. Georgia's defense, truly, it will only really be a game if Georgia's defense comes in. Georgia's offense has been pretty consistent. Run game wise, they've been pretty good. Georgia's passing game is a little iffy, and I think if Alabama just gets turnovers when Georgia passes it, then bam, good field positioning. Alabama should be able to win against Georgia probably the same way that they were able to beat them the last time, or maybe even a little bit more badly. Now, if Georgia wins, it's only because Alabama's team doesn't make it. Like their defense just doesn't show up and they can't stop the run. I think you stop the run against Georgia and it turns into not a necessarily slaughterhouse for Alabama, but definitely you get a couple first downs here, you get a few more field goals than usual, and you're able to stick it to Georgia once again, and maybe even clarify yourself as the top four in the top 4 seed to make yourself get a first round bye for Alabama. Now, a lot of people also have some things said about this, where Georgia, if they win, then not only do they get top 4 seed, but Alabama losing will push them out of playoff contention, which whenever I was talking to the Alabama fan that comes around my work quite often, in my opinion, I feel like I agree with when he says the conference championships. Once those conference championships happen, they shouldn't necessarily have too much of effect going into college playoffs. But at the same time, whenever I'm thinking about it, I can understand the pros and the cons going in and playing. Like, you guys doing the best, you guys are fighting for this conference championship opportunity, but yet you lose that conference championship opportunity, even though you guys have also been up here the entire time. You guys then get dropped down just because you lose in a conference championship that you worked so hard to get. And then at the same time, now you guys are either at bottom seed of college playoffs, or you're completely out of college playoffs. But, for those who think it's fair, for those who think it's unfair, I'm sure you guys have your own opinions. But like I said, going back to these matchups, Alabama takes this win home for the SEC and for their own program. And it would be the first conference championship for your guys' head coach, which, by the way, don't worry about that head coach leaving. I'm telling you, regardless, win, lose, whatever, you guys are going to be just fine as long as you guys don't get screwed by some weird thing like your head coach wanting to leave, like this whole thing with all these other head coaches, or possibly having frickin' some weird recruiting stuff going on, which right now Alabama's recruiting class is already top 5, but that's really not a surprise for a lot of you guys that know what's going on in the world of college football. So going into Indiana and Ohio State, they basically end the night off with Duke versus Virginia. Indiana versus Ohio State, the only two teams that this weekend from Friday to Saturday that are undefeated. Indiana 12-1, 8-0 in conference play. Ohio State 12-1, 8-0 in conference play. Gonna be an incredible matchup. Two Heisman nominated. No, I guess not nominated, but two Heisman candidates. Two Heisman candidates, both quarterbacks, gonna be solid, and I can kind of understand the whole 604 tickets are as low as that, but $604, $234 per seat is quite a bit of money. But I guess whenever it comes to you witnessing some great matchups and some of the best, if not instead of some of the best, it is the best matchup going into this week. Granted, a lot of people can argue that Georgia versus Alabama is definitely the better one out of Ohio State and Indiana, but we will just have to see. Ohio State's defense truly has to come in and take care of the pass game. I think they can. It's just what type of injuries are both of these two teams dealing with right now? Is Ohio State's defense, if Ohio State's defense shows up, what does Indiana do to combat that and turn it around to try to still be able to do things like getting touchdowns, getting field goals, getting even first downs? Because if that Ohio State, even if the front 7, so defensive line and linebackers, show up, it's still going to be a tough time for Indiana and their quarterback. Truly, because you pressure him, he may be able to go out of the pocket and run here and there, but it ain't going to work as well as he thinks it may. Especially if our corners, again, do what they do. Ohio State is pretty much number 1 in the country. And granted, you can say, well, they're not a part of the SEC. Those guys have like 5, easily 3 to 4 people in the top 5 of the whenever you're talking about defense. Yeah, well, realistically, Ohio State, they come together, they will beat a lot of the teams in the SEC. Not most, majority though. That's a hot take though, because you still have Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia, Vandy. Even Vandy has been pretty solid too. Texas A&M, a lot of those great teams. But again, realistically, that's just how I feel. And even being an Ohio State fan myself, I could definitely be just running off of bias, but going into a game against Indiana, Ohio State is still going to try to be able to show why they are number 1 in the nation and not Indiana, because I guess some people were arguing that in the middle of the season. But then you also have Duke versus Virginia. Duke, randomly, just because of technicalities and how people lost in their schedules, Duke being 6-2 in conference play, 7-5 in total. They actually have the worst total record out of every single team that's going to be playing Monday through Saturday. Virginia 7-1 in conference play, 10-2 in in total record. Now, in my opinion, I do believe Virginia is going to absolutely whoop Duke, and that's why some people, like, for some reason, some people are kind of worried if Duke does somehow pull it off by like 38-35, then they obviously shouldn't make it to the conference champion. Oh, shouldn't make it to the college playoffs. Virginia shouldn't make it to the college playoffs, and there'd be no ACC team going into the college playoffs. However, I do believe Virginia, who has already beat Duke once before, I'm pretty sure, Virginia has the offense and the defense to be able to beat Duke, though Duke has a giant chip on their shoulders to prove, hey, we did not just come here and get beat by Virginia. We did, we fought and clawed for this position. Even though we're 7-5, we'll still be able to show why we're here in the first place. And I think Virginia just needs to make sure that they don't get caught off guard. And I think Virginia is going to do just fine, scoring more than likely 30 plus points on Duke, where Duke may only be able to score 17 or less points against Virginia. So with that being said, again, hopefully this is the video that you are watching, or the video that I'm recording here today, because I did see some lag, so hopefully it does. I stopped this, and from what it's saying, 41 minutes and 25 seconds. Hopefully it doesn't say something stupid like 46 minutes and 20 something seconds. So again, without that being said, like, subscribe, comment, let me know what you think. Which matchup is going to be your favorite matchup going into it. If you guys have already watched these matchups and you watch the highlights, you can come back to this video and comment, hey, actually I saw this matchup on Friday and I thought this was actually pretty cool, or this Saturday matchup did a lot better in my opinion than Ohio State and Indiana, or Alabama and Georgia, stuff like that. Come back to the video and just tell me what you think. Anyway, I hope you guys have a very awesome night, and hopefully I don't have to record this once more. And sorry for a little bit longer video this time around, but conference championship week, it's got to be something special, and it's going to be a long one just because I got a lot of things to say about these individual programs. And again, sorry to not make it short and sweet like usual, but there you go. Peace out, guys.